Good afternoon, everyone. So we'll be starting the last session for the day, and this is a very pertinent session in terms of how we can actually manage the risks pertaining to capital projects, look at certain innovations, innovative ideas in terms of how some of the emerging technologies like AI can actually help in terms of optimizing our project cycle time and cost. And we'll also have some diverse flavor in terms of some strategies in terms of better contracting, which can also make our execution better. So I'll just quickly introduce our speakers for the day. So first we'll have Konad. Konad is from HPCL. He'll be covering a very pertinent topic on use of Gen AI in terms of our capital projects. We would have Varsha. Varsha would be talking about the strategies in terms of how we can make our contracts better so that they can ultimately help in minimizing the disputes and arbitrations at a later point of time. Next we have Abhishek. Abhishek is from EIL, and he will be covering again a very relevant topic in terms of using AI and machine learning in helping better manage our risks. We have Nasir. Nasir would be talking about, he's from Oil India Limited, and he'll be talking on a very technical aspect, again with a focus on optimizing the project cycle time in terms of use of modular surface facilities. And finally, we have Gaurav. Gaurav would also be covering a very pertinent topic in terms of how we can actually use better practices to optimize our cost in the projects. So without much ado, I would request Konad to start with the session.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning, everyone. First of all, I'm thankful to India Energy Week for giving this platform to share our case with the audience. So, I am Konad. I'm presently working with Hindustan Petroleum. I have a total 16 years of experience, primarily in project execution, project management, and engineering design. Presently, I'm working with the ERP department, where we have done a major project migration from existing from the legacy ERP to the latest SAP. And today's topic is like how we can enhance productivity in EPC project management through LLMs and Gen AI. The plan of the presentation is that we'll see first what are projects, what are the challenges we face in EPC project management, and then we'll see the latest of Gen AI and LLMs and how it can help us do our work faster and in a better way. And we'll also see into the technicalities of the new age generative AIs and LLMs, and finally we'll see that how it will help us in our future of work. So to start with, we'll just define what is project. A project is a temporary endeavor taken to undertaken to create a unique product, service, or result. So as you must be knowing that each project is having a scope, cost, and time, which constitute the triple constraints of any project. In the current scenario, projects are getting complex. We have sort of high risk projects, and this execution, the successful execution of project is one of the critical aspects that we need to handle. And this not only sort of a big value addition for a company's growth, but also for India's growth. And the challenges that we are facing in project is like we are processing huge number of documents and data, and with this a new set of complexities coming, like we have to handle this data manually, and there are high volume of data, and handling is resource intensive. And this is just a brief overview of the documentation pyramid that any project would have. You, in each of the EPC stage, we have multiple variants of documents and data that we need to handle, that a project manager and a project engineer needs to navigate. And as we go on at the end of the project cycle, this documentation pyramid just builds up and builds up. So this is one of the key factors that we see that 45% of the man hours spent in any EPC cycle uh, is related to document processing. And what is the percentage of sort of weightage it carries? It carries only 15%. So if we can reduce this man hours load which we spend on document processing, we can significantly reduce the project timelines and also reduce cost. So with this, we have the latest in tech. You all are aware of ChatGPT, DeepSeek, and Llama Gen AI tools, which you are using on daily basis. Then why not use this for our own project work so that we can reduce and sort of do our work faster. With this Gen AI and LLMs, the latest of the LLMs are having capabilities like these are multilingual. These have vision capabilities, means it can understand image, and these have common sense reasoning, and these are very good in understanding real world significance, and also these are very good for mathematical reasoning. So with this, we are sort of using we can leverage these custom made project management bots. So what these bots will do, like this will bring the two paradigm of like AI and project management together, and we'll have this project management bot which sort of are using RAG, sort of retrieval augmented generation, which is the latest of AI, and it can be trained on a large set of like project data, which is the corpus, and it can then help us do and handle complex tasks like as document summarization, information retrieval. We can have also capabilities of document generations. So with this, we know that in project management we have a huge sort of interface with multiple stakeholders. We have a lot of unstructured data. We need knowledge retrieval at split second. We cannot afford to wait for knowledge retrieval, so that we want instantaneous results, and we with the use of this kind of LLMs and Gen AI tools, we can create data driven project Q&A, like query based like tools which can help the project managers and the project engineers. So now we'll just delve into some of the case studies. So this shows one of the typical project document, which is a cost estimate. So let's say in any cost estimate, you will have a detailed sort of breakup of different components of cost. And let's say at any top level person who is sitting at the apex of project management and project like monitoring office, they will have hundreds of documents like this. So if you want to retrieve information at an instant, say let's say like what is the project cost of this particular project, this bot which is having access to all these hundreds and thousands of documents, it can instantaneously bring you this information at a split of a second. So let's say we ask that, okay, what is the cost for this project, and you can see the results. It has accurately, very accurately has retrieved the information that this is of 398.9 lakhs, and it is also saying that, okay, which is approximately 400 lakhs. So this result from the bot is not only having a reference, and it is also grounded to a source document, and we see that the result is absolutely success. We have complex documents like project Gantt chart, which is having activities, duration, and weightages. We can query, we can use this chatbots, open source chatbot, to query the information, and you see that the results, the chatbot is good enough to bring us the exact dates, and we have high level of success in this. These are some of the sample project documents like specification sheets and data sheets. This is a data sheet of a control valve where we have different parameters, process parameters. So we have hundreds of process parameters like this. So when the chatbot is being leveraged, the chatbot is trained on this kind of project data, you can have instant results of this. So let's say where we are querying that what is the valve size for this tag number for our like project which is running in Mumbai refinery, and we see that the valve size is being fetched correctly as 1 inch, which is our daily requirement. Like, on daily basis we talk about this. This chatbot is also very good in document summarization. We can have big manuals and big tenders. We can summarize this and we can get the results in a split of a second. So, and this is not only good in summarizing data, but we can also have a Q&A kind of a questioning. So, once we get a result from LLM, we can also ask a follow-up question like how to avoid underestimation for this case, and we see that the chatbot is giving us this answer beautifully, scanning through the entirety of the manual, and we see that the context and the confidence of these results are very much high, and this is also a success. Similarly, we have more use cases where it can understand the complexity of the engineering activity. So if we are asking that what activity needs to be completed before one activity can start, which is like little tricky when you are running through a project schedule, it can automatically understand the contextual relations between activity and also give us the results. So we have hundreds of audit reports and inspection reports. We can use this kind of tools to fetch results instantaneously, and we see that we have very high level of success like when we are processing this. So now to go into the technical details of this bot that we have built. This bot was powered by Llama, which I think you must be knowing that this is an open source like foundational model from Meta. So we have been using Llama 3.27 billion and we have been using Open Web UI to build the chat interface. We are using Retrieval Augmented Generation RAG, which is like it will be generating the vector database, which is based on the project data, and based on the similarity patterns, it will then give us the results. And this implementation is absolutely local. This is not running on the web. Like minded, when you're uploading data on the web, you are sending your data to American servers or maybe Chinese servers. So which is not the call. We have to have data privacy. So the only ways to run is that to use these models to run this on WAN or on local network. So we see that these are having high level of accuracy. These are grounded with citations, and this runs on sort of open source. So the cost of developing this kind of tools are very low. So there are limitations where we want this to run on some high-end servers. So we need to invest some amount of capex on procuring this dedicated hardware, which can run this big foundation models. So any of these bots are having this 4 specific component, which is the vector database, we have the LLM encoding, we have the LLM Llama, and we have the interface via the user queries. So we'll just briefly touch upon the technicalities of these LLMs and how it works. So every time we are sort of querying the bot, we are feeding some string of characters. These are broken down into tokens. Each of the tokens are then processed by the bot, and the 3D image that you see is a spatial vector database that is built on the project data. So this project data is being used to create this vector database, and when we query, it finds the similarity between these different data points and brings us the result. So it is much more technical in depth, but for paucity of time, we'll just give a basic overlay. And as you know that like OpenAI are billing based on tokens, so we can also develop this running over web, where we get the service from OpenAI and other sort of Gen AI service providers, and it will be built basis your tokens. So like one important thing is to like note that there are some hallucinations which are there in chatbot, but as the technology is evolving, it will get better and better. So presently these are standard data available from the benchmarking sites. We have Llama 3.27 billion having hallucination rates of 5.5, So maybe after a few years it will drop down to a figures of zero point 0.0 decimal. The best of the model, which is paid model like ChatGPT, have hallucination rates of 1.5. So we'll have to like consider this when we are doing the engineering for this kind of chatbots and using LLMs. So we see the what is the impact of this work. If you see, these are the kinds of documents that are there in any project. So we see that for each category of project we can reduce we can have an effective reduction of processing manpower. At a summary level, we can achieve 82% of reduction in project management and document preparation time. Overall, it can impact, it can suddenly have a 20 to 30% of reduction of man hours in a, which is a significant sort of savings in a big EPC cycle. So going forward, there are some challenges in adoption. We have to work on accuracy, change management. We have to understand the touch points with ERP, where we hold a huge amount of enterprise data. We have to work on data security. And then like we at HPCL, we are sort of building a big Gen AI tool. We are procuring NVIDIA sort of hardware, which is like custom made for running these high-end applications, and we are expecting there would be a 5 seconds or less response time on each of the user queries. So with this, we asked Lena, we can see that there is a continued adoption of AI in project management. Like lot of innovations are being driven by AI and AI-enabled tools. We see there is transformation across industries, and there is strategic alignment, like we have to do it because it aligns with the strategic goal of India's growth. So to summarize, we come back on the project triangle cost, scope and time, and we infuse AI, the latest of Gen AI, and we have cost effectiveness and efficiency and productivity. The closing thought of this session is that we call upon the industry to leverage the latest of AI tools to enhance productivity and drive project success. AI is not just a tool, but it's a partner in shaping our future of project management. So with this, I think I'll end my session. Thank you so much. Thank you to the audience. Thanks.
Thank you, Konark. I think we'll all appreciate this is a very pertinent topic that Konark has covered today. And the results that we are seeing are very encouraging, right? So he mentioned that we are spending almost 45% of our time in processing documents. But if use of AI can actually help in reducing this time by 25 to 30%, this is a huge saving for our projects. So I think this is something which is really a big encouragement for all of us to adopt to this technology. Now I invite Varsha. Varsha will be talking about some best practices in terms of how we can structure our contracts from an open acreage perspective. So Varsha, please come in.
So I'll be explaining basically analyzing the upstream acreage contracts from the perspective how the transparency in the contract has been evolved, and also with the arbitration and disputes. Yeah, this will be the content flow line of my presentation. There's a comparison index across the different bidding rounds in upstream happened, and the key insights from it, and what are the current factors which are attributing to the disputes and arbitrations in upstream, proposing 10 remedial measure, and then the conclusion. So before I move ahead, just the upstream contracts or the projects are basically capital intensive projects where the risk is inbuilt, it's inherent. We don't know when we drill the well, it will hit a oil and gas discovery or it can be a dry well. And on top of it, if we have the arbitration and disputes in it, so it adds to further cost of the contract, so and the project as well. So here I'll be covering the part how to avoid those cost and cost optimization by avoiding the arbitration and disputes. So this slide is basically for the in-house, those are not from the upstream, talks about the evolution of the upstream, how it has evolved from nomination to the production sharing contract to the revenue sharing. And for my study, I have considered basically the production sharing contract and the revenue sharing contract. So I analyzed the descriptive part of the contracts from PSC, that's from NELP 1 to 9. Then for the RAC, DSF 1 to 3 and OLP 1 to 9, we just had the OLP 10 launch in the inauguration of IEW by the minister. That contracts are not yet available in the public domain, so those are not included in this analysis. So what I find for comparing this in the transparency perspective, the features which I considered was accuracy, disclosure and clarity. Based on that, sub 8 categories had been divided, which was further divided into 14 subcategory. So covering to the homogeneity of the contract, what I found, even in the pre-NELP round, each round, every contract were different from each other. So the contract signing and the award of contract, there was a scope of negotiation. So we have some disputes because of this. So this, but it was corrected in revenue sharing. So now every contract is uploaded on the sites, and every operator and the companies are the same footing. Efficient governance mechanism, now we see the clear demarcation of the apex competent authority of the upstream contract, that is the management committee. We have a clear demarcation of role, what they need to look into and what the operator are supposed to carry out. Coming to the timelines, earlier we used to find lot of ambiguity on when the exploration phases are finishing, when the next phase is starting. So the phase definition of exploration activities are also quite streamlined and explicit in today's contract. Equal opportunity after the 1991 reforms, definitely we have equal opportunity given to the foreign players as well. And a punitive measure, now it is very clear in the contracts that what is expected out of you investors and by what time, and if it is not done, how the penalty will be calculated. So which was missing. So as you can see, the index 2 basically denotes that it has been implemented retrospectively in all the contracts now. So this brings out quite a transparency in expectations and non-delivery, what was the penalty. Streamlining the process, definitely there were a lot of cases the project was stalled because of non-clearance of environment, MOD for the offshore areas. So now I should appreciate EGH, who has basically cleared a single window clearance, which facilitates the contractors to carry out the work. Operational freedom and data access, I think they both are interlinked because of the NDR, which collates all the technical information and disseminates 24/7 to all the operators in the world. So now it's they can study, they can carry out. So it brings basically all the operators who wish to work in India on the equal footing. Now it's up to them to analyze, bid and win the contract and carry out the work. So from this comparison index, the key insights is because now the negotiation before signing of the contract is gone, so it's basically the transparency aspect is increased. So earlier there was issues regarding the royalty calculation, post wellhead, pre-taxations were different. So those are disputes are now well taken care of. Timelines are also well defined. Obviously the extension also required for this upstream projects are also clearly defined. Approval process is very streamlined. The liquidated damages, as I said, the calculation measures, calculation parameters are good, data access and the e-bidding, which is quite transparent, as our minister also said, this inaugural, that we have the encrypted e-bidding process in the world, which is quite transparent to win the projects and carry out the work. Yeah. So those in the house who are not new to upstream, I thought it's pertinent or my duty to just introduce the difference. It's basically we work, upstream works in the broad umbrella of ORD Act, which is currently under amendment, and PNG rules. So as I said before, we'll be covering up two regimes, PSC and RSC. So basically the two have a different model of working. The PSC is production sharing, whereas the revenue RSC is revenue sharing. Cost recovery is also gone away with RSC. Though basically there was many hindrances to work for operators. which was taken care by the government from 2016 onwards, and it's a work still in progress. The gas pricing also has been phenomenal for the India. If you see as compared to the world, we are at par with them now, which is making the projects viable as well. So coming to what I have understood, I have categorized the arbits, basically disputes in three categories. First, between the government and the operators or the investors. Then between the operators and their JV partners, and between the operator and the third party service provider. So the government is taking care of the first part. So I can elaborate more what is that happening. The contract itself, as I told earlier, the contract was not homogeneous. In the same round, one company is negotiating for a different kind of taxation, and there was the royalty calculation also. So the financial books were not clear, the calculations were not clear. From NELP onwards, the government realized this, and it was explicitly hosted on their websites. So now everyone has to follow the same rule. This is bit taken care of now. Project execution, what I want to mean here is the cost recovery element of the PSC. Because earlier the cost recovery element was there, so the investment in the project was done at the earlier stage. So which used to keep the investment multiple actually towards the lower side, so that the government sharing doesn't go high. So we see this part is also taken care of in revenue sharing, because now revenue sharing has inbuilt of production and the price in it. So the production performance, my next point, is also covered. Earlier, all the companies needs to sign in the MCA special program quantity. So which defines the production in that particular year which they needs to deliver. So now that is also gone away, and it is quite transparent. Production and pricing is already dynamic, and it's taken care of. So there is no basically disagreement between the companies and government on that part. Delays and disruption, yes, there is some work which still needs to be carried out, but the excusable delays has been covered very wonderfully by the guidelines issued in 2020, and there's still some work going on it. I can't disclose that now, but there is a part taken care of. Now coming to the operator and the JV partner. So major, this needs to be sorted out between them through a JOA. But just to throw some light, the cash call pricing, basically the costing part of it, and if it is not paid, the costing methodology, and if it not paid on the time, the interest charge on it, it's been a major contention between the parties. The scope of work, suppose it's a big operator, so which is interested in drilling a well, but for the JV partner, it is not financially feasible, or they don't even agree technically to drill a well under that contract. So this becomes issue. I've personally seen that, which is now still considered to be unresolved in many of the blocks. Vendor selection, now when we have the private and the government entities, the vendor selection and the services also been quite argued upon, and it is interlinked with again with the cost recovery, so it create a multi-layered difference. Operating committee approval, many of the contracts have deemed approval clause, which is again the JV partners are challenging. They are not ready to carry out the operations further, and they are requesting for the MC approval for further clarity. So these were between the partners. Now coming to the operators and the third party, which I think is valid to any industry where it is upstream, downstream or midstream, the scope of work. If there is some change in the scope of work, addition of some work which has been given, so there is a tiff between the provider, then the execution on work, if we change the timelines and all, again it's not been taken nicely, it's brought upon. Quality of service, which is again a different perspective as per the company, the quality perspective is difference. We cannot measure quantitatively. Suppose I know a case where we don't have the logging tool at the side at the rig, and there was no backup option, so the operations were held, and the rig cost was again bared by the operator. So it's a default this thing of the third party, the tool is not working, but then again the sharing of cost becomes an issue sometime. Now coming to the remedial measure, which will be attributing holistically to avoid the arbitration and cost and doing the cost optimization. As seen in the index, the transparency of the contract has done a progressive evolution in Indian upstream. But I suggest if DGH has a transparency licensing option. So it basically creates an open channel of communication which will again bring more clarity and working on the issues rather than going to directly disputes and disagreements. Then contract itself. As I've explained, the PSC has evolved very nicely and the RSC is taking care of many of the contentions part, but there's still few articles which need to work on. For example, the work program article 5. Now there's an operator which is unable to carry out the work due to the fisheries and seismic survey due to the fisheries and bird sanctuaries. But the contract, in the ambit of contract, it is not clear. It only talks about forest or danger zone or MOD clearance. So basically the operator is not able to complete the whole entire project, and now there is a disagreement going on. In fact, this is the only reported disagreement, or you can say dispute, in the OLP so far. So this also needs to be very explicitly defined in the future. I think OLP 10 may take care of it. Coming to the third point, the stable and clear fiscal regime, the government is definitely working on it, and as unveiled in one of the DGH sessions, that ORD Acts is also evolving. So here what I am suggesting to work on the grandfathering principle, which basically talk about neutralizing the contracts or project from any change in the law in the country and the policy. So we have a classic case of Vodafone versus Government of India, where we had the retrospective lot of taxation issues. So the fiscal stability for the international investor is mostly sought upon, what Exxon and Chevron is trying, and I'm pretty sure we'll be soon having a better ORD and clarity on fiscal stability soon. Now moving to the arbitration, what I wanted to say, in RSC we definitely have a fast track redressal process, but it still doesn't cover that clearly. It says if the sole expert is failed to assign someone, then directly it goes to the arbitration. So what I'm suggesting, if we have a outside committee nominated by DGH or mutual agreement, that will again act as a mediation, which will support our again the mediation initiative by the Indian government. So that can be one of the measure. Now coming to third, what I suggest is even if there is a arbitration dispute, it has to be conducted at the neutral place where the companies and governments are involved. So because many times Indian government have clashes with this. Now coming to the model contract point 6 explanatory notes, many times it is not clear with what intention that contract was drafted. So that explanatory notes to be given at the bottom, the intention of it, so there is a less scope of misinterpretation. GIP, IP, those are in upstream, definitely is aware, is updated I think in 2017, which is referred in RSC more than 24 times. That needs to be updated, it's need of the hour. And then I'm suggesting an electronic approval tracking system. We definitely have a database system, but we need to have because the projects need to be planned accordingly. The dispute resolution mechanism of PNGRB, especially Act 12 and 24 needs to be extended. And I suggest India join the extractive industry initiatives as per the major producer. So in conclusion, overall, the contracts under which different projects are carried out has evolved wonderfully. There are still bottlenecks, and hope some of the suggestion is taken into consideration. Thank you.
So one critical aspect, which really determines how we succeed in our projects is, how well we are aligning our stakeholders, be it the government, be it the JV partners, be it the operator. So this delivery from Varsha is talking about that critical aspect, that how contracting can be made more transparent, made more explicit, so that all these disputes that we actually face later, in the project closure stage can be avoided, and then that can also help us in building strong relationships among stakeholders. So well covered, Varsha. Now I invite Abhishek from EIL. So Abhishek is again going to talk about a very relevant topic right now, which pertains to how we can leverage AI and machine learning in actually managing the project risks that we are facing. Over to you, Abhishek.
Thank you for this opportunity to speak on this prestigious platform. My esteemed speakers before me, both Kanad and Varsha, have made my job quite easier. Kanad has, very wonderfully covered the whole gamut of, using LLMs for project execution, while Varsha has touched upon the complexities of any project, especially in the oil and gas sector. So, but before the topic which I am going to focus on is leveraging data analytics and AI/ML for project risk management, which is kind of a subset of project execution. Before we jump into the topic as such, we need to understand the context. So, India is the home to 1/4 of the world's population, and we intend to be a developed country by 2047. To be a developed nation, we need to provide good infrastructure, good health care, good education, and a number of other things to all our citizens. To achieve this often requires investment in projects which take the form of projects and programs like the Sagarmala project or the National Green Hydrogen Mission. This finds reflection in CapEx. So, for the current financial year or the financial year 2025-26, the budgeted capital expenditure is to the tune of 11.2 lakh crores. It's not going ahead. Yeah. As you can see, there has been a very significant increase in the capex for the on behalf of the government. Why we have considered government capex is because almost 80% of the capex in India is by the government, with only around 20% coming from the private sector. So it's a good parameter for understanding the total capex in the country. The problem is that 46% of my projects are delayed. So this means that almost every alternate project is going to be delayed. This is as per some of the reports being issued by Ministry of Statistics and Petroleum, and these pertain to major projects over 150 crores. Approximately 1800 projects are covered under this kind of report. These projects on an average suffer a cost overrun of 20%. To put this into context, this is equivalent to the entire capex of the private sector, which is estimated for the current financial year 25-26 by the RBI. Okay. So obviously, this is a major issue and that needs solution. There have been multiple studies and reports to find probable solutions to this. As per one of these studies conducted by PMI and KPMG for again MOSPI around a few years back, among the different causes of cost overrun, in case we are able to address the problem of project risk management, we might be able to it might lead to savings to the tune of 12%. 12% of the cost overrun can be mitigated in case with better risk management. Similarly, better risk management can also lead to time overrun savings to the tune of 5%. Which brings us to the topic of what is risk management. Risk management in our personal lives is trying to reach early for to catch a flight. It means putting on a spare tire for our vehicles just to achieve our objectives. As far as ISO 31000 is concerned, it is the effect of uncertainty on objectives. As far as PMI is concerned, it is the effect of an uncertain event or condition that, if occurs, has a positive or a negative impact on the project. So risk can be both positive and negative, not only negative. That needs to be understood. There are multiple international standards for risk management. Obviously, there is the PMI standard. There is the TCM framework by ACE. There is obviously the ISO standards. Apart from this, there are certain standards by CII, which is Construction Industry Institute USA. There are multiple reports and suggestions by different government agencies and think tanks like Gatton Institute, Australia, so on and so forth. A point that needs to be understood here is that risk management, project risk management is often confused with enterprise risk management, but actually these are two different practices. Enterprise risk management aims at defining the higher strategic level objectives, which in turn feeds the project risk management benchmarks. The actuals or the actual risks of the project are roll up to the enterprise level, and we check whether they affect the enterprise objectives or not. Having said that, a typical risk management process, irrespective of the international standard, follows the process. It starts with this planning risk management, which involves deciding how to set benchmarks, followed by the identifying risk phase through various methods, brainstorming, so on and so forth. You do a qualitative risk analysis, which involves doing a probability impact matrix typically. Sometimes you move to a quantitative risk analysis, which involves mainly Monte Carlo simulation, which is followed by the planning risk responses. What are the mitigation measures that need to be implemented? These measures are implemented, and regular monitoring either on a bi-monthly basis or a quarterly basis, depending on the organizational policies, takes place. This entire process results in multiple risk management artifacts, which are the probability impact matrix and the risk register typically, which many of you might be aware of. Not so often it takes the form of a probability distribution chart and some kind of a Tornado charts. I would like now to delve deeper into one of the stages of project risk management, the identify risk stage. What are the inputs for this stage? Typically, you have a project management plan, some kind of a schedule, some scope documents, multiple agreements, like Varsha here told us, number of project documentation. You have the enterprise, benchmarks, processes, so on and so forth. All these documents are studied, and you do multiple meetings, you go through multiple checklists, maybe sometimes do a root cause analysis, and come up with a risk register or an initial list of risks. The problem with this current approach is that it is entirely manual. It is entirely time consuming. Often this process, initial process itself takes anywhere between 1 month to probably 1.5, 2 months, depending on the number of stakeholders involved. Finally, and most importantly, it is totally subjective. I would also like to highlight that this is basically the data on the left hand side is mostly unstructured or semi-structured. So how do you solve this problem? The panacea of all ills, artificial intelligence and machine learning. I would like to specifically point out that AI and ML is not only large language models. It is much beyond that. Say if you are doing a pattern recognition for credit card frauds, then probably LLM is not going to help much. You need to take recourse to multiple other popular AI/ML algorithms like linear regression or some kind of a k-means or support vector machines, so on and so forth. Typically, machine learning problems are classified as supervised, unsupervised, and reinforcement learning problems. These are further subcategorized. The typical process that is followed is you define a process, you identify the data sources, you choose a technology with what model you want to use, train the AI model, and test and improve it, deploy it, the model, check the results. Over a long-term period, you also have to check for what is called as some kind of a variance in the model or the drift in the model, and revise the model accordingly. Based on this information, we propose a new methodology of risk identification or risk management, specifically the risk identification stage. You still use all the inputs. You deploy a AI/ML model. The model gives the feedback to a human, which in turn gives potential risk register. In case the confidence level is high, then the human intervention can be minimized. A point to be noted here is that the ML model is not a single model, it's not a large language model. Often it is of late a RAG model called as a retrieval augmented generation. Basically, you feed the prompt or query into the system. The system checks with an expert database, enhances the query, and then feeds it to the large language model, which in turn gives you the output. This is of late said to give better results. As far as the AI/ML in quantitative risk analysis stage is concerned, we typically have a risk register. We also have a project schedule. The data flows into some kind of AI model, which can be a k-means model or some kind of other model. These help us estimate the individual activity durations. Currently, this is done on a manual basis. We propose that this process of estimating the activity duration needs to be done through a AI/ML model. Once the activity durations are fixed, you run a Monte Carlo simulation on that, which finally gives you a probability distribution chart with the P80 or P90 values. Another area where AI/ML can be used for project risk management is sentiment analysis. This is pretty much prevalent in social media. What you see on the top left of the screen is the project communications. Most of the communication, by some estimates, 90 to 95% of the communication or of projects is unstructured. These are fed to some kind of a AI/ML model, which checks the sentiment value on an absolute basis. It also checks the sentiment variation over a period of time. Okay, teams are different, so the average, it's some kind of a BP gauge for the project. This is normalized and then acts as a feedback to the project risk values. This can be fed to the through emails or your ERP systems or to your Power BI dashboards for consumption directly, or you can have a feedback loop which to multiple stakeholders with relevant communication to improve the situation. Okay. So to conclude, we studied a number of research papers and internationally published journals and came to the following conclusions. The identify risk stage is probably ripe for using generative AI and in combination with KNN and native Bayes or SVM algorithms. The expert judgment or the qualitative risk analysis stage is primarily a classification problem where ANN, KNN and native Bayes can be helpful. The qualitative risk analysis stage is primarily a regression problem which can benefit from linear regression, decision tree and XGBoost. The planned risk responses is again a classification or a generative AI problem where LLM and native Bayes KNN can be helpful. The implement risk response is not an AI problem, it is more kind of a digitalization problem where you need to integrate workflows with your AI/ML model and systems. And finally, the periodic review or a risk radar kind of a thing can be used for monitoring risks through sentiment analysis or native Bayes, KNN and SVM. These effectively are independent agents for each stages together form a larger risk management agent, which in turn forms a subset of agentic AI for the project execution phase. Thank you very much. With that, I will conclude my presentation.
So thank you, Abhishek. So I believe we all would appreciate that considering the complexities in our project, effective risk management has a very important play. And so far, all my experience in projects has basically indicated that our risk management has been somewhat theoretical in nature. But with this kind of approaches using AI, ML, no, I think this is a paradigm shift in terms of making it more objective. So definitely we will find a lot of use in our projects moving forward. So now I request Nasir. Nasir is from All India Limited, and he'll be covering a very important aspect in terms of modularization from a surface protection perspective. So over to you, Nasir.
A very good afternoon to you all. My topic of presentation is, it is a comparison between the hiring of production setups in, with setting up a permanent production setup in any field. In any field in the sense, it is a remote or satellite fields. In my presentation, actually, I have considered two scenarios. That is a current scenarios. Current scenarios I have considered where actually from the economical point of view, whether it is beneficial or not. First of all, actually, Oil India Limited is an upstream Maharashtra national oil company, which is primarily engaged in the business of production, development, as well as exploration of crude oil and natural gas. In Oil India Limited, this one. In Oil India Limited, currently we are using more than 16 numbers of permanent production setups to produce this crude oil and natural gas. And these permanent setups, we name them as oil collecting station, gas early production setup, then quick production setup, etc. But to produce the crude oil from the remote as well as remote satellite fields where oil permanent setup is not available, what we will do? Otherwise, we have to untap the oil. To tapping the oil, we have to set up some system from where we can directly produce crude oil and evacuate natural gas from there. To achieve that, actually, we have hired modular-based surface production facilities just to produce from these remote as well as satellite fields. From there, actually, the crude oil is directly, after processing, it is directly transferred to some designated areas through tankers or through pipeline, subject to the availability of the pipeline. And natural gas that is evacuated through the pipeline depending upon the economic feasibility of the pipeline. Suppose if it is in a very remote location, so economic feasibility may not match there. So in that case, that natural gas, we usually, if the quantum is less, we usually flare it. Currently, on that basis, actually, we have 26 numbers of modular-based production setups, and I have here shown the capacity of the surface production facilities. Actually, because all these satellite as well as remote locations, the production is very less. So, for that, actually, we have considered if for oil handling, it is 300 KLPD at an operating pressure of 50 psig. And for gas handling, we are using nearly 0.75 million standard cubic meter at a pressure of 300 psig. The key function of this separator is to just to separate the well fluid liquid to natural gas as well as crude oil. And from there, actually, I have already mentioned that crude oil is transported through buzzers or tankers, or natural gas is evacuated through the pipeline. Now, with this surface production facility, that is 26 numbers, Oil India is currently producing around 15% of the crude oil from their total production. The benefits, actually, what we have observed, the benefits derived by setting up a modular-based production setup in comparison to a permanent setup is that investment cost in terms of capex, such as construction of building, such as manpower deployment, such as furnaces, everything it is nil, because all these are kept under the scope of the service provider. They are responsible for this, the whole entire production of these installations. Further, the maintenance as well as inventory management, that is also, it is also nil, because everything is managed by the service provider. As we do not employ the direct employment is not there, so CTC for deployment is completely nil. Financial outgo with respect to the per metric ton production is much lower. So we have also kept the provision for interim demobilization and remobilization. In case of non-requirement, we can directly demob the equipment, and wherever the requirement comes, we can directly transfer that surface production facility to that location. That is the flexibility. That's why it is a mobile one. So it is completely skid mounted. We can directly transfer it from one location to other location within a very short span of time. This is a just typical modular based surface production facility I have shown in Oil India Limited. And here it is, this setup is in a well-planned area, where land requirement is also not very much high. So all these equipments which we use in our permanent production setups, this is here 3-point manifold. We use here also 3-point manifold. Then surface safety valve, which is pneumatically as well as hydraulically operated. And this is for just for emergency shutdown system. Indirect heater, as you all know, that is for preheating of the crude oil. Then choke manifold is also there, just to reduce the to regulate the pressure. The choke manifold we use there. In all these equipments, then this separator, it is already a three-phase separator, because in the SPF units, actually just I want to highlight here that we cannot separate the crude oil water from the crude oil, because it is very small, because that's why we offload all these crude oil to the nearby offload in the Bowser station, where there is a facility, then it is transferred to the tank pump, where there is a provision of separating this crude oil from this water from the crude oil. Actually, in other permanent installations, we are having the directly separation of water for emulsion treater in the for crude oil. Then from the separator, actually it is going to the surge tank. From the surge tank, it is directly we store the crude oil, and from the store, if there is no any pipeline to transfer, then Bowser loading facility is also there, which is pneumatically driven pump. So we load the Bowsers and we send the Bowser to the designated areas where we can offload it. And all these other utility equipments are also available. And this is the typical flare pit. As it is a completely temporary setup, because it is completely in a remote and remote satellite fields. So this is asbestos. We are using the asbestos. And operator room and DAQ system, this is data acquisition system, where directly pressure, temperature, differential pressure, everything can be monitored from this system. But for an oil production setup, this is a huge setup. This is production of SPF, and this is also same, but this is not in a remote location, and connectivity nearby connectivity is there. So we have set up a new one. For the we have set up our own one. In that case, actually, this manifold is a 5-point manifold, and separator area it is same. Tank is a round tank instead of rectangular tank. We are keeping this tank, and also from directly here we are pumping the crude oil to the directly inter tank pumps. And utility, it is almost same. And firefighting is in place, and all these firefighting equipment we all take the although it is also present in the this surface production facilities. Here it is a direct permanent production. This firefighting system is also here. Now, coming to the, as I have already mentioned, that I have considered two scenarios. That is scenario A, the surface production facility where we have placed and where the production is very high. I have considered one scenario there, and where we have the production is very less, I have also considered another scenario. So I have just comparing these scenarios with the permanent production setups. Now, coming to the surface production facilities, suppose we with a production of 210 MTPD. Now currently we are using in the surface production facility, which is having maximum production of 210 KLPD, and we cannot produce the crude oil beyond 300 KLPD. So for that actually, and considering the current net realization of the crude oil, if we consider the current net realization, as at the time I'm preparing this abstract, it was in the month of August. So I have considered the month of August or September, I forgot. So I have considered the current net realization of crude oil in the month of September. From there actually, we have observed that financial outgo is around 2% of the total revenue we have earned. Just I want to highlight here that to establish a hiring production setup, our minimum break-even point is 4 metric ton per day. And so with that, and for natural gas, it is 6,000 standard cubic meter per day, considering the 9,000 calorific value. So this is the first case actually where I have considered that for a installation where actually production is very high, we are handling it right now. Now for coming to the second case, where the production is very less, although it is in a very remote and in very remote satellite field. So production is there, actually we are getting the production 9 metric ton per day. This is the lowest production we are getting, and from there actually I have observed the financial outgo of this lowest production is around 40% of the total this revenue earned. Still it is in a hand, we are having 60%. So the break-even point for both the cases is same. Now the financial outgo, to set up a permanent setup, we need the capex as well as opex. So this capex as opex, if we establish in these remote locations, remote satellite fields, then it has been observed that we will per day 50 times financial outgo if I consider the scenario 1, and 1,000 times per day financial outgo if I consider the scenario 2. So in that cases actually, for case A, suppose 50 times financial output is okay, but it will take nearly 3 months time to reach the break-even point with which we have already invested, and approximate cost of investment to set up a production setup is nearly 30 crore. Because we have to, I'm just excluding the land requirement. After that also actually the equipment, manpower, then everything, all the land to be developed, everything is to be done. It is under the scope of the oil. So we are incurring a loss of, not loss, we are incurring a cost of really 30 crore rupees. And for that actually we have seen that 50 times per day, for which 3 months requirement, and 1,000 times per day for 40 months requirement, 3.5 months. For that actually, if suppose if production is not sustained after 1 month, then what will do? What will happen? Then all these costs which we have already incurred, that is irreversible, because it is a permanent setup. That is a huge loss to us. So this analysis, it demonstrated that hiring a based of surface production is economical in remote and remote satellite fields in comparison to setting up a permanent setup. As I have already mentioned that it is mobile, so it can be non-requirement, we directly demobilize. If requirement exists, we directly mobilize from one location to other locations. And land requirement, sorry, land requirement for setting up is nearly 40 by 40 square meter. This 40 by 40 square meter. So which can be easily accommodated in a well plinth. Or suppose if any unutilized land is there, company's unutilized land is there, then automatically we can directly put the surface production facility there. On top of that actually, before setting up a permanent setup in any areas, this surface production facility will help us just appraisal of reservoir performance. If reservoir performance after we have set the surface production facility, after that we can directly evaluate the reservoir performance, we can do the appraisal of reservoir performance, and based on the reservoir performance whether we can go for this expensive production setup is required or not required, that can be we can directly take a call. That is for this actually, then it is a great saving to the company for suppose if a permanent setup is done, then after few months only, then the reservoir appraisal is not carried out, and after that this whole production is, we have lost the production. Cessation of, because of the cessation of the flow and cessation of anything. In that case, actually, the whole cost is irreversible. We will incur a huge loss on that, on that. And further, in this surface production facilities, we can directly measure the API gravity. We can directly measure the specific gravity of the gases. We can also directly measure the BSMW. Everything we can directly measure, and BSMW we can measure here. With this, actually, I conclude my presentation. Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity by the Indian Energy Week. Thank you.
It's a very relevant session. You know, modularization definitely brings a lot of value in terms of both capex optimization, opex optimization, as well as also compressing the cycle time. And this is also demonstrated well through your analysis. Now we move to the final session of final speaker of this session. So Gaurav. Gaurav would be covering some aspects on the cost optimization aspect, considering our concession-based tax regimes and how this impacts our capital projects. So over to you, Gaurav.
Before me, almost every speaker spoke about project and project management. But the question remains, what is the biggest challenge of the mega projects in upstream industry? That question remains. So I welcome you all in my session. I am Gaurav Kumaranjan from ONGC Videsh. And the answer to this question will be given by my paper, which is captioned as Impact of Cost Escalation of Mega Project in Oil Field Development in Concession Tax Regime. Outline of paper is overview, introduction, factors responsible for success of the project, factors responsible for unsuccess of the projects, and I have proposed innovative mathematical modeling. It took at least 6 months to derive, design, deduce the mathematical equations, which is still not in the industry. And today I am very happy, and I am going to dedicate and hand over these equations to the industry. And lastly, the major finding of the research, discussion and conclusion. See, the biggest challenge of mega project is 30% of the project is cost overrun and 41% of the project are schedule overrun. And I am not telling this one. This has been discovered by McKinsey. This has been discovered by Big Four. And today I am feeling privileged that our session chair is from Big Four. And this is the persistent and long debating for decades. And when your oil field is situated in concession tax regime, then it depends, it intensified, because here taxation is stringent, tough. We have less profitability in that case with comparison to production sharing regime. So I would talk on the elements of cost overrun and schedule overrun, and quantification, proposition of the mathematical modeling, and other mitigation strategy. When cost and schedule overrun happens, you lack FID commitments. Sometimes it is marked as failure, and it happens mostly in upstream industry. You have less NPV value. So my aim of the study is to characterize all those variables which are responsible for unsuccess of the projects and derivation of mathematical equations, and how these factors behave over life cycle of the projects. See, success of the project depends on n number of variables, but to have better execution plan and design of the project, you must go for 3 steps. That is project definition, planning and design. Second is independent project review, and third is the factor which is our direct control, that is geopolitical situation, force major, and failure of the managerial positions like that. So I will talk later on. But before going for all three, you have to consider what is the source of revenue. Your source of revenue is oil production, and who forecasts, who tells the oil production? It is the reservoir dynamic model which forecasts the production for entire life cycle. Based on that, you are going to invest. Recently, I was associated with one of the project. It was costing around $11 billion. And the 3 steps and updation of the reservoir model all were going simultaneously. And when the project was ready to award, at that time we came to know, oh, my model is going to forecast reduced oil production. Then the project turns into red. So similarly, this front end loading should be before your execution, and all stakeholders should sit together and review independently what is the outcome of FEED, independently, unbiased it should be. And the factors which is direct your control, which I will talk in next slide. So what is front end loading and its impact? It's a crucial phase. It estimates cost, risk, and everything. But in practice, due to less time, most of the organization follow only 3 steps of FEL, which is not very correct, because in access stage, we list out what are the ways, what are the options to get a particular objective. So you list out all, and select a stage, you just select only one which is best one and optimum one. And third one is the FEED stage. Here every design is done, estimation of cost, risk, and everything is done. It's a very crucial and soul of the project management. In my examples, I have calculated you can save the 30% of the cost if you have practical and representative FEED model. And lastly is the EPC stage. In the EPC stage, the work is awarded to the EPC contractor and work starts from scratch on the ground level. I have taken the 17 examples of cost overrun and schedule overrun project. It ranges from 50 million to 60 billion. It includes facility, drilling, pipeline, asset replacement. I have reviewed 250 very critical IPR sessions, and data is from some of the published papers, board minutes, and regulatory reports. You can see here it is a very typical example of a oil field where the cost has escalated 52% over the original estimate. See how critical it is. So finally, after analyzing all the projects, 17 projects, I have derived and discovered 2 mathematical equations. When you go for 4 stages of FEL, each stage will give you 1 point, and 4 stages will give you 4 points. So you can draw best fitted straight line, and whenever there is additional capex you are going to infuse, then it should follow the same trend of a straight line. It should be uniform, it should be linear, then everything is okay. If it is not following the same trend, it means something is wrong, and you have to look, you have to revisit all the calculation methods and everything. Then you can judge, and you can go in the next step after rechecking all the calculation and everything. And here you can also calculate the critical point. What is the critical point? After this point, if you invest even a single dollar, your project is going to be unprofitable. That you can calculate from this equation. And second is that recoverable are total capex infusion over life cycle of the project and net cash flow. It follows certain specific signature curve, that is parabolic curve. It opens downward, and from you can generate for a particular airfield a typical type curve. And if cost escalation happens, schedule overrun happens, then it will not, if it will not follow the same trend, it means there is something wrong, and again you go recheck, revisit all the calculation, all the things. You will be able to control the cost, you will be able to control the schedule. And last equation is already available in the industry, but you club all together, make a comprehensive mathematical model, and you will be able to control budgeting, scheduling, and design, everything. So after analyzing all the projects and using the mathematical modeling, I am sure you can control the cost very effectively. Even then, if some cost overrun and schedule overrun happens, in that case, you can go for de-scoping. What is de-scoping? If suppose you have 5 scopes in feed stage, then you can go for removal of 1 or 2, whatever, it depends on the situation, because every feed it takes 6 to 9 months for the study. When you again will go in the feed stage, then your project will lag the timeline. So you must adopt the de-scoping strategy, and same time asset sharing. And what is asset sharing? Suppose you have processing facility, you have pipeline, anything, and if there is some spare capacity, you must go for synergy and resource allocation with the some assets which is around you, that will drastically reduce your cost. Nowadays we are talking about carbon emission reduction. We can implement in our oil field, and the incentive which is generated you can provide to the feed contractor to have very stringent, and they can catch the timeline. Something is very tough to control, that is managerial incompetence and dishonesty of the promoters, and I have calculated from my sample size that 14.2% of the cost increases just due to the managerial incompetence. Sometimes we talk about local value creation, it also increases the cost. See, when we are going for awarding the project to any EPC contractor, you must go for negotiation. I have seen there is a drastic reduction in the cost. You go for global player. So these are the things which we must consider while making the project execution. So use the mathematical modeling, and you will be able to control budget, scheduling, time overrun, schedule overrun, and you will have better financial outcome, better contingency planning. You can control the cost prior to the timeline, and everything will be in your hand. You can control everything of the project management. Hope I was able to make you understand the cost escalation and how to control the cost and schedule overrun. Thank you.
With this, we have come to the conclusion of our session. I think you would all agree we have had some wonderful insights during the course of the last 1 hour. We started with Kunal. He talked about how we can actually use bots to really, cut down cycle time in terms of our engineering and document processing. Varsha, under the lens of RPC and production linked contracts, talked about how better transparency can really lead to reduction in the disputes. Abhishek, talked about the concept of agentic AI in terms of using AI and ML to make our risk management more objective, more practical, more believable. Nasir, again, through an assessment, really demonstrated the value of modularization in our projects. This is something that we can use in our other fields as well. And finally, Gaurav talked about what is the importance of cost optimization to really get the desired profits or desired value of our projects, and how we can, through areas like better feed, better planning, and independent project reviews, strengthen the same. So with this, I would like to thank all of you present here. Thanks for your time and thanks for your patience listening. And I also would like to thank our speakers for their wonderful contribution. Thank you.